our current reality is how do you be present with the people closest to you? How do you be present in your career and still have time for yourself? And that's where I'm trying to change with relationships with men, connect with men to not just be work mode, come home and be exhausted and sit and stare at another screen. Let's get your health right. Let's get your energy right. And let's get you more present with those that you love and need to connect with. And you'll be way more powerful and get way more of the outcomes that you're looking for through that experience.
Hello, Brian. Thank you for joining.
Hello, Astra. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, again, we're having yet another conversation, only on different
Yes.
podcast. I did enjoy our last conversation, which
Wonderful.
I will leave it below in the show notes so people can go check it out,
Wonderful.
as well as the recording that you sent over to me with the discussion you had with, I don't remember the name of the person you were talking to about the men's mental health and
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
with Tony and
yeah.
yep.
It was such a good conversation. I'll leave it in show
Thank
notes as
you.
well.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
I want to start you off with the question I ask everybody,
Okay.
in alignment with Chase the Impossible. What is something that at some point felt impossible for you and now is your new normal?
I would say for me is business ownership. Uh, just being an owner in and of itself wasn't something that I thought about early on in my career back in 19, 20, 21 age. Just didn't think that's what I was or wasn't going to do. It's just I could just get a job. Uh,
Yeah.
I had a job. I became a fitness staff person. I would help people with the workout or do the clean the treadmills. That was the worst part of the job. Nobody wanted to do it. It was always the last on the list was cleaning treadmills. Then from there, I shifted in personal training, which I guess is a little bit more self motivating, self starter type. Because if you don't have you only work, you get paid when you work, and then that sort of opened up the door to then owning a gym. That came in about age 24, 25, and now I'm 42, and I'm 100% self employed for the last say since 2015. It's been a solid 10 years that I have not been, I've just been on my own navigating all the fun of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Fun in full range of fun.
Yes, yes. And a lot of it just one, it came from growing, just evolving. I remember I was the weird personal trainer that hogged the squat rack every single day. It just I was doing CrossFit style workouts with my clients back in 2010 or no 2008 or so, and that was just that really caught my attention as a really effective way, and just scaling them appropriately toward my clients. They'd have fun with it. They progressed. They did really well. But I just started to evolve there. And even now where I'm at, shifting again from just doing basic just health, nutrition, fitness coaching, shifting and evolving into something higher. Just there's a call in my heart and in my mind to grow and shift toward 40, 50-year-old men a little bit more specifically to help them, because I see if I don't have a passion or drive, then I don't have much fire in me. Yes, I can show up for my family of four kids. I can show up for my clients and such, but it just becomes, what's today? I don't even remember what day it is, but helping other men avoid, say, that midlife crisis crash type thing. Let's have a midlife evolution into a better health, better leader, better impact in their family. And that is what's starting to drive me now is another, say, uh, evolution of who Brian is, iteration. That's what I call him. I'm on like my 10th iteration of who Brian is and how he shows up in the world.
And I think a lot of it comes, I have seen that in I literally also am like going through shift where I think I'm slightly moving away from coaching and more into like podcasting
Yeah.
and all that, and potentially down the line doing some like group work. But at this point, I'm like, I think I want to focus more on like the personal branding stuff, on like marketing stuff,
Yeah.
podcasting, because I also see how through that, if I help people that want to start podcasts have impact on others, for me, that's a win in my book. But
Oh, totally.
it was such a it was solid 6, 12 months of me going back and forth. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do this? Da, da, da.
Right,
And
right,
as you
right.
go through that, you don't really move forward in either of areas. You're
Either.
just like
No.
jumping
No.
between the two. And I could see
Right.
that where you also get exhausted with doing it. But
Yes.
I think, and I would also talk to you about this because for me, a big part of it has been not learning not to attach one to certain image or certain kind of expectations or something that I assumed or I would assume is like the best way or the right way, but more so just trusting the process and also
Right.
trusting my gut and what feels
Right.
right in the moment instead of overthinking it too much or the other extreme to that is trying to do everything.
Yes. I think that's an issue that I'm having right now is doing everything. Do I write an email? Do I make a social media post? Do I create an ad to gain
Yeah.
more eyeballs and attract the right type of client? Do I get on a podcast? Do I spend time with my kids? Do I spend time with my wife? Do I spend time with my friends? There's 8 things I just named off the top of my head. Do I do housework stuff? It's either doing this or that because my time is finite for all of us and I probably could do a better job of delegating or bringing on a team. I just haven't, say, evolved to I had coaches when I was in the gym. I had other people helping around there, but in this sphere, I haven't, say, evolved just yet to need a third, a second person to help navigate outside. I have coaches. I actually have a coach that helps me with business and making the right moves to push me forward faster, right? Shortcut, get a mentor, get a coach, get someone to shorten it. If you're listening to Astra and you're looking at a podcast, you might want to talk to her because
Yeah.
she's been doing this a while for years now, and she can shorten the time frame of how to get to where you want to go or speak your voice or nail down your message or get connected with other people because you connected with me with Nick. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I was I am in a group where I found you, and then we had our conversation. A couple weeks later, I had one with Jay Lewis, who works with single
Hmm.
parent fathers on helping them step up as better men for their kids and the people around them. I met Tony 2 days before, Tony Lynch, who does men's grief support. He's got an incredible. They all have incredible stories. I said, "Hey." So Tony and I were talking. I said, "Yeah, I'm actually on a podcast with the single fatherhood this week." And he said, "Are you on with Jay Lewis?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm on with Jay Lewis." And he's like, "I know Jay Lewis. We talk all the time. I messaged him like a day ago." I'm like, "Oh wow!" So there was that connection, and then you connected me with Nick of Our Dead Dads. We kicked it off great. We had our kickoff call. We got on, had just a great podcast recording. He knows Tony, and then it's just all of a sudden. And then I got on just one or two other people, and they know Tony, and,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden, I'm in this web of like 6 guys that Tony seems to be the centerpiece. But I was connecting. I sent out an email invite to 4 different people, connecting them through just that introduction there, and it's pretty crazy. And it happened within, say, 3 weeks of time of getting into that and having conversations and such. So pretty wild. But Nick was excellent. I had a wonderful time on his podcast. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, I had him on my podcast, and it was literally that day we were chatting, and you said you want to get on more podcasts, and you
Yeah.
mentioned that's how we got to Chase the Impossible as well, because you
Yeah.
mentioned like men's mental health and all that,
Right.
and that's where I was like, oh, that's something that I wanted to talk about on this podcast a bit more,
Yep.
and And then you also mentioned grief, and I just had finished recording with him, or I think I recorded with him like hour later or something like that. And I'm like,
Ah,
I have a person who could be a good guest.
yeah, it
And
was great.
one thing that I have learned about networking, because I started to network, I think it was like now maybe like 3.5 years ago, and I started with a goal to um, I was like, I don't think I'm not that good with people, or like I'm kind of like awkward, or
Oh, you're
I
right.
feel that way. Others wouldn't say that, but I would feel that way. And I was like, okay, what's the best way to get better? Talk to as many people I don't know as I can. So I would just literally
Yes.
just reach out to people, be like, hey, we both are in this crew. Would you want to connect? And I would,
Right.
and I also in some experiences that I have had, because I think in entrepreneurship you have to network a lot, like regardless.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
I saw that a lot of people would show up and it would become like a pitch quest. Who can pitch first? My services to you. Like, you
Ah,
need my services. And I'm like, we are 5 minutes into conversation. Like we haven't even gotten to know each other. And
right.
and it felt so fake and so forced. There was no real connection. It was kind of like,
Yeah.
who can I try to dodge your offer and like I'm trying to squeeze in, like
Right.
it was kind of like that
Right.
awkward, you don't really connect. It's like, oh, let's connect. And then they show up and it's like, here's some things you can do in your business. And I'm like, what's your name? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got. You can see who uses say podcasting as a funnel to do that, and you realize that you just raised your hand and got sucked into it. Some of them are
yeah.
better than others. I remember the one lady said she wanted to offer me two-year coaching program. I said, yeah, just like that. It's just like, I just thought I was getting on a podcast to talk a little bit, not get sucked up into an offer. It's just you gotta meet and connect people, but the talking and stuff is a super fast way to build a relationship. How about we talk and engage, and then talk about services afterwards?
And I think that's something that I have realized because my sales coach was asking me when I was working more intentionally on like getting new sales and like strategies how to do that. Um, he was asking me like, where do you get your clients so far? And I'm like, Most of them have been networking." I
Yeah.
didn't go into networking with like objective to close somebody, but through that
Hmm.
connection, through that conversation, I usually go in and I'm like, the least I can do for you spending like 30 minutes talking to a stranger is try to add value if I see a place where I can do that.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love to brainstorm. I love to like have ideas, share value, and do all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's like I describe myself as German Shepherd. I need to be mentally
Uh,
stimulated,
yeah. Well,
whether I get paid for that or not.
after we're done, I have someone to connect you with too. But that was exactly it. I found them on a place. I messaged him. Somehow I slept through the crack. I filled out his form, and then I messaged him a week later, just doing a follow up. And then all of a sudden he said, "Wow, you're persistent." And I was doing it in a ethical, not
Yeah.
pitching, not I was just like, "Hey, this is who I am. Here's some topics that could be relevant to your audience, and trying to add value first." And then I got added into his school group, and I did what he asked. I made a video. I I liked some things in there. I comment. I voted for his podcast that he asked for. And then he had a coffee hour this Sunday. It was at 10 to 11. And I thought about going, but I had a client at that time as well. She ended up canceling. Unfortunately, she had a migraine and couldn't make it. And we actually talked on Monday, but I joined him for an hour. We just sat and talked shop and talked about our life and all this. And he sent me an email, said, "Well, you're going to skip 45 forms. I'm skipping 45 people ahead of me to get booked up ASAP in August." And that was just through conversation, connection, and trying to give value first. And the guy has a great platform, what he does. Andy Grant is his name. Real Men Feel is his
Oh,
podcast. And
what a name.
he's got 360 episodes. He's been around a little bit, and it was just really, and he knows Tony too. Well, he knows Tony through Facebook connection, but
Okay.
I sent Tony and him a connector email and to help foster that relationship because they'll have a great conversation. There you go. Collaboration and connection and value.
I'm I'm curious in your perspective on this because this is something that I have noticed that the connection itself, I feel like even though we are much more connected, but the connection itself, it's kind of dying off, or it's not as common, at least that real sense
True.
of connection. Or a lot of times, even example is like networking. A lot of times
Right.
people network just because it's in the checklist. I need to grow my business, so I need to reach out to people. They actually are not that concerned with actually connecting. And I think
Right.
that's one thing that I have an example with one person that I connected. He's in like cybersecurity. And I was at like one LinkedIn event and I just would reach out to anybody who would comment. I'm like, hey, we were at this event, let's connect.
Yeah.
And we had a call and it was, I learned a lot just from that whole experience about networking where at the end of the call, first of all, he said, I will send you 5 more people to connect with just based on our conversation. And
Yeah.
he's like really well connected. And then he said, it's so refreshing to be on a call. At the time, I was like more focused on coaching with a coach who doesn't try to convince me to work with them, like,
Right.
or
Right. Right.
back him up in the corner of like, okay, here's your problem. I finally found it. I can fix it
Yes.
kind of thing. There was like no,
Oh,
it's
it's
kind
the
of like
worst.
connection with no agenda. And,
Right.
and I think that's something that I have seen it a lot with when people try to pitch me something. Currently I'm playing the game where I'm like, okay, how quickly can I turn it into actual connection call? Um, and
Yeah.
I have found like few strategies how to do that where soon enough they understand, okay, we're here to connect. And it's also in my interest to learn more about them and their business because if you try to pitch me, first of all, I'm less interested because I don't feel like you actually are trying to get to know me
Right.
or what my business about is about and if I even need your services. But
Right.
also if I feel that connection, it's more likely that I'll want to refer somebody, even if I don't
Right.
need the services or keep them in mind. But I'm curious on like what's your experience been when it comes to connection, and maybe from there we could also go into connection when it comes to men, because I don't think that
Yeah.
I think
Definitely.
for men it's even like another layer of
Yeah.
like challenge
Totally.
or
Totally.
discussion.
Yep. For me, connection. I've been. I try to be as connected to my wife as I can. I try to be connected with my 4 children as much as I can. Yesterday, we picked my son up from a 2 week trip down in Orlando. He went swimming, and we offered that opportunity. We give crazy amounts of as much opportunity as we can. We did a 2 week European vacation all together in June, just to give more. My daughter, she's 10. She's visited all 50 states. She's flown around
Wow.
the multiple countries and such. So we just really seek out opportunity through travel, through scholarly type things, through performance, through sport. When we spent most of the time, we played on a playground. I actually did a post on it last night. We played on a playground. Those are some of my fondest memories connecting with my kids. But as far as say Brian as a business or just Brian is Brian, there's not a lot of connection. I've been
Mm.
so focused on business of serving my client in a way that I just people, did you hear about this in the news or you watch this on Netflix? I've got 10 minutes of time to watch something on 1.5 speed, usually, if I do watch anything at all. And then the only news that I have is when I swipe left on my iPhone and I get the Apple News, whatever the 3 stories are. That's it. That's all I know of what's happening in current and reality. And that's my reality. I could do better and such, but I'm really driven toward family first, and then clients, of course, and serving their needs. So I've just spent so much time one on one that I don't have a lot of connection, and that's why podcast. I'm an extrovert. I'm happy to talk and connect, and I have energy, and I need to dispel this somewhere. And I found that podcasting has been a really good avenue to speak, to better understand my messaging, better connect with people. And actually, when I see you on the socials, I give you a like or I add a comment, and that because that helps you, and it keeps us connected in a sense too. And I've been doing it to every person that I see, say Tony or Nick or whoever. I like their stuff or I'll comment, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm actually developing real relationships with real people, although it's social media way, but that's okay. That's good because now I'm starting to have other people in my, as my son say, aura or surrounding uh, my group, and that for me allows to foster more of what I'm looking for, but also just even this conversation for others to say, hey, maybe I should reach out a bit more and connect with real people, because the other shift that's happening, and I'm sure you definitely feel it, and as I do, is AI. AI is making things so inhuman, and you can see it everywhere. As soon as you put the AI glasses on, then you see it everywhere in the images and the copy and the replies. Or I had someone reach out through just a direct message about getting onto podcasts. Basically, she is a podcast booker, and it was I woke up to it, but you could tell it just looked AI-ish, in a sense of, oh, you're 23 years in the industry and this and this, and it's just like, what gets you onto these type of podcasts or something. It just felt maybe a little inauthentic in a sense.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Like, it's actually, even when it comes to connecting, I have an interesting perspective on it, that
Yeah.
because I would like, especially when I was reaching out to a lot of people to network.
Yeah.
Because initially I'd reach out to people and then I care if they answer, if they don't. Oh, they read the message, but they didn't answer and all that kind of stuff. In my mind, I started to draw the line at, um, until I meet them, it's just like another name on the, like,
Of
Facebook
course.
page. So,
Totally.
and but I also have seen that, because there's some people that they would say like they prefer to connect just like with messaging back and forth. And I know that even if we had like 10-minute conversation, the
Right.
energy,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
communication, you just can't even if it's just audio messages, it's not the
Right.
same as
Right.
if you just jump on a call and you actually have conversation with
Right.
no agenda. I just want to get to
Yes.
know you, you know?
Yeah.
And and if I can think of some ways how I can help or support you in what you're doing.
Yep.
And I don't
Yep.
expect anything back. I just want to help. And
Right.
which is another interesting thought I had. I was on a train and I remember I was thinking about it, like I think last week. At what point did being helpful or caring for others became this like badge of honor that we wear when we are like, oh, I helped, like you have to announce that you helped somebody or you did something good for them, instead of it being this just like a normal
The
thing. It's like
norm.
that's the norm. And
Right.
you don't have to now like announce everybody that you're this good person. And as far as I got to just like pondering on it is, one thing is that I have noticed that, especially in my generation with social media, we have become so self-centered
Oh, yeah.
that it
It's
feels like everything
unfortunate.
is about me. And
Self-isolated.
isolation is a scary one, and I have experienced it myself, especially even like with being ambitious. It's easy to justify it. Say, oh,
Oh,
I
yeah,
need to
yeah,
work
yeah.
on my business. I need to build it. Like, I actually
I'm
have perfect
struggling that
example.
line too.
Like,
Yep.
perfect example. I just got back from my like trips and everything,
Yeah.
and in my
Saw
mind,
you in
I'm like,
Rome on one of
yeah,
your
I was in
pictures,
Rome, I was
walking
in
around.
Dublin.
Yeah.
And, now that I got back, I was like, "Okay, I have, like, around, like, 100 days until I will have to leave for a marathon." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to Athens." So I'm like, "Okay, that will be trip, but also it will be like a race." And in my mind, I'm like, "Okay, I need to lock in. I need to focus just on training and business, and that's it." And in the last few days, it's like I met my friend yesterday. Today I met like my teammate. We went for a walk, and now like she asked me if I can look after her like apartment for like 2 weeks, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
okay.
and in my mind I'm like, maybe this is my chance to find a balance. It doesn't
Right.
have to be like full on extreme, where actually that might not be the healthy way to approach it to start with. Because for me, whenever I have social interactions or whenever I go home and I'm actually present with my family, by the time I get back, I feel so, I think the best word is regulated. Like,
Yes,
I
yes.
am regulated, I'm ready to go. All the craziness that has been going on, it's kind of like calmed down. The storm is calmed down, and I can get to work until the next storm is up, and I can go and connect with people, or
Right.
ideally be connected in between so that it doesn't get to the point where I need that. But it's something that before I would neglect that, or I would feel like, well, I don't have time. I have to focus on this. This is more important. But at the same time, that little time that I would spend with people and actually connect and feel connected, it it helps me to regulate myself to the point where I actually show better to what I have to do. And I'm more efficient with my energy as well, because I feel like I'm more
Right.
present and more grounded. But it seems counterintuitive or contradicting kind of to do that or to focus on that as the approach. Because in my mind, like logically speaking, I'm like, okay, no distractions, just lock in and get to work. But now I'm like, I have my creativity flowing and I'm like, oh, I could do this and
Yeah.
I could do that. And it's also really important kind of finding that balance between spontaneous, but also the structure and connect. And I have like, it's something that I'm a bit sad about initially for myself because until like recently, I didn't really understand what real connection is. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
sure.
everybody's talking about it. Yeah, sure. Um, but then the more I start to feel connection with people in my life and like my family, my parents, and grandma as well, that's when I start to see it's kind of like, oh, but how do you explain it to somebody who is not has not experienced that, and in their mind the priority is its career, its growth, it's that acceleration. And also one thing for my generation, self-development,
Yeah.
self-development.
Right, right, right. The good old saying, one thing that comes up is your net worth is your net work. If you want to just play that game, that's an age old motto of connection and being in the right places with the right type of people that foster what you're looking for. And that's what I guess that's one thing that I'm doing. I understand that principle and I'm moving in that direction. Okay, where are the places where my person, my who Brian is, can add value into those circles to create better connections here. Not now, not today, but 6 months from now, 2 years from now, and start these inroads of connections and such. Going back to Tony, he has a magazine on grief, and I wrote an article for it, and we'll get it in the next edition or two on how health impacts taking care of yourself with your grief or that type of process. And we all know that exercise is Mother Nature's best remedy for feeling down. It boosts the energy, it gets your endorphins going. Those feel good hormones get boosted. So connection and adding value is definitely something that's on my mind. And when you are I came in I to start aging myself. I didn't own a cell phone until I was 20 or something like that. It was 18 to 20. I just didn't need one in a sense. Then I didn't really get on Facebook until my young 20s. And now we're trying to keep my kids from having cell phones until they get to high school. That's the age that we deemed it because at that point they can't they can't exist in the circle, the societal circle that they're in. They would be the odd one, the weird one that doesn't have a cell phone. Oh, your parents don't let you have a phone and just get made fun of basically. And so we've been able to push that off and the TikToks and the socials and all those things as long as we can. But if a kid has been inundated with that since they were 5 or 6 because of all sorts of circumstances from just parents being overwhelmed to lazy parenting to just the accessibility, on varying degrees that a kid is just inundated with this, and I see it in my household with screens is trying to get the kids to connect and doing things other than screen related activities is it's a challenge. Whereas in the past, even when I was growing up, there'd be TV and then Nintendo, and I wasn't quite at the Atari age, but Nintendo when it first came out, we'd do that stuff, but we'd also go outside and play and engage in that way. And I think the concept of humans and now and in the next decade, we're going to see this interesting shift of where people have been socially and even with this say sense of isolation and not connected to other people on a real level.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially with younger people. And it's and it's so easy because
Oh, so
uh,
easy.
you can get a sense of connection or illusion of connection through certain like digital even if you just consume somebody's content, you feel like you're
Yeah.
connected with them, but there's no real interaction. Or and with that, it's also it's one thing that I have identified with like my generation is that we struggle also with social interactions and building relationships and all that, where I would see like I would be in a cafe and I see a couple that both of them are sitting on their phones and they're not
Yep.
actually like being present with each other. Or for you
Right.
to be that way, you actually have to like intentionally deal with that addiction that you have with your phone,
Yeah,
not
it's a
to
real
check it
addiction.
and
Yep.
actually be there. And especially when it has been your normal, like the phone for most of us like youngsters growing up, like you grew up with a phone, like you always had it.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm
You
lucky
always know
where
where your phone's at.
yep, yep. And if you don't, you panic.
Yeah. Where is that?
But like I have been lucky where I think until like probably 10 or 15 years old, if I would have a phone, like it would be only like with buttons or something like that,
Right.
where like the smartphone
You can
came in
just
later.
dial.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And it's very interesting to look back and realize how little I was using my phone then. And I didn't feel the need to use it, not even use it, check it. Just checking.
Oh, yeah, checking is yeah. There's this, Chris Williamson, if I'm sure you're familiar, right? He's all over the YouTubes and such, but he referenced this on a short. I like watching shorts because it gives me those real short, actionable things amongst he does super long form sometimes, like 3, 4 hours, but they had this artwork that someone took pictures and they CGI'd out the the phones in their hands. You just
Oh,
see
yeah, yeah, yeah.
people staring at their hand and just like, what drugs are these people on? And they're just sitting in weird positions, usually slumped over, head forward, and staring at their phone, walking with their phone, all these things with the phone. And that's reality. I do it too, and it's bad. I don't wanna do it. I almost wish I was born 50 years earlier to be ending with the phone in a sense, and I have to deal with it, but that's not it.
Yeah, and it also affects a lot mental health. And
Oh,
one,
totally.
especially because I had an interesting conversation with my grandma at some point. We were asking her because we were talking something about like insecurities, and I was asking her like, at what point did you stop feeling insecure? She was like, I never did. I didn't have time to now think and analyze how I feel or whatever. I had like property to take care of. I had like they had dog and then they had
Right.
kids, and she just had to always do something that like she wasn't in a space to just like sit and reflect and think or feel bad. And also, another thing to add to that, she didn't grow up on social media, so there was way less space to actually compare.
Oh,
She
man.
was just
Yeah,
in her
comparison.
world, doing her
Yep.
thing, but
Right.
then now what we have is we don't just see other people's, like, lives online. We see the highlight reel, the perfect version of it.
Yes.
They
Yep.
don't like,
Curated.
I think now more authenticity and real is coming in, um, but a lot of it still is you're still gonna show the polished version of how things actually are. Um,
Always. Yeah, humans, they want that you walk into the room and that 30-second overlook. You wanna look good, feel good about what you're presenting. Most definitely.
do you have any advice with that comparison with others?
That is so hard. I think it's a complete mental frame of reference for yourself, and you always have to go back to this has been curated on some level. The angle, the positioning, the copy, the hook. Right? How many times you hear about you got to have the best hook the first 3 seconds, and it's just a nauseum of it all. And again, it's our instant on demand, instant gratification world now demands that if you want the attention, if you want the notoriety, the fame. Another thing I heard once was from some major YouTubers were they went into a large, World Cup type of a game, and they were showing different people around the stadium who were there. A lot of people didn't know some of the A-list celebrities. They just didn't know who they were,
And then
but
you're
they
the
knew
streamers.
who the streamers were, and they got the biggest eruption of notoriety, and that was really interesting that in this day and age, you can become an A-list celebrity in a sense in your own circle through connection and through creating content. But I guess what's the angle of it as well? It's really tough.
And also, one thing that I don't think many people think about when it comes to that is, and I know several creators, how much work it actually takes and how
Oh
much
man.
it just takes over. Even like for me, the more I go into creator mode, the more I'm like, I'm less present in my world because then I'm like, okay, I
Yes.
need to capture this. I need
Staring
to,
at a computer and
yeah. And I
right.
also, even when I'm out and about, I'm thinking about where's content.
Right.
So you
Right. And
start to
not
kind
what
of
life
filter
is.
everything through content,
Mhm.
and it's a challenge because like in my case, I want to share authentic content, but it's also like you still want to share it like in my case where it's adding value to the person as well.
Right.
And then it's always about kind of thinking about that angle and trying to manage it where you're still present within the life that you live, where you don't, not everything now
Right.
becomes about content. And
Right.
it's such a hard thing to balance. And I don't think many people realize how, if you're a content creator, sure, everybody sees all the attention, everything, and engagement, but it's, first of all, it's constant.
Yes.
And
I
it
feel
takes
that
over your world. Like you
very
literally,
much
like
so.
I have seen it with people where it takes over their like focus, their
Yeah.
attention, they're
5
not really
minutes
present.
will cost you easily 30 minutes of your quick, an hour. For sure. I've gotten stuck doing that. Or even last night, the playground picture that I posted last night, it could have been very easy. I snapped a picture while I was on the playground to capture and just it was really about, hey, fathers, connect with your kids. But then I could have literally sat down, curated the rest of the image and the caption and all that while the kids were playing on the playground, and I would have missed out. I didn't. I ended up doing it at 10 p.m.
Hmm.
last night when I actually launched the post, but totally could have just overtaken that. And next thing you know, I'm staring at a phone rather than playing with my tag with my kids at this playground, which we purposely went to get the kids out to move, and would have completely defeated the point and the purpose of it in the first place. I would have missed the connection with my kids, and that would not have been a memory in a sense for my kids because there's just another time at a playground. But if dad's there playing tag, then there is my kids literally remember different playgrounds that we spent all over the world, even at different times that we've had sharing experience of a fun, really, this wasn't even a playground, but really, really fun time that we had was, and this came up was we went to Toronto. Sorry, we didn't go to Toronto. We went to Niagara Falls at the end of our 50th state. We did a 7 state tour last year, roughly around July. So it's almost a year ago. We finished in Vermont, was our 50th state. We had some Ben and Jerry's ice cream to celebrate. And then, because my wife loves Ben and Jerry's, then we went our way to Niagara Falls before we came home. I live in Akron, Ohio. My kids wanted to go to the field where we played tag about 3, 4 years ago. And there's this courtyard looking field there that's a little south of, I'm going to say south just because of the water running and headed down the river. So I should say a little bit down the river from the falls itself before the bridge that has this huge expansive field. There's this nice architecture and such. And we just played tag for 30, 40 minutes running around and trying to trick each other and not be found and all sorts of stuff. And you'll see one kid just wandering across the field looking for everyone as they here's the pillar and they peek, just barely peek to see where people and those are such fun memories that I have through connection with my kids. And again, it could be really easy to just sit, let my kids do that and scroll yet some more for what? I don't know.
Yeah, which also is not the best leadership or like role modeling.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's the juggle of our current reality is how do you be present with the people closest to you? How do you be present in your career and still have time for yourself? And that's where I'm trying to change with relationships with men, connect with men to not just be work mode, come home and be exhausted and sit and stare at another screen. Let's get your health right. Let's get your energy right, and let's get you more present with those that you love and need to connect with. And you'll be way more powerful and get way more of the outcomes that you're looking for through that experience.
One thing I wanted to ask you, which I think you slightly started to touch on as well, is that being productive versus being present. Because I think it's it's something that I see a lot in modern world. It's about how to be the most efficient, how to get the most out of your time, and you
Productivity. Yep.
optimize everything. And I definitely have lived that life. Like I'm a coach, so I have gone through pretty much everything when it comes to productivity, like all the books, courses, everything. And
Yep.
and you get
Yep.
so much into optimizer mode that you kind of let the life slip by trying to optimize everything, but you end up not actually living or being present to anything that is actually happening in
Right.
front of you. But it's
Right.
something that I have seen that even like with the half Ironman when I was doing it, I would have people ask me like, so when are you gonna do the next one or what's the goal there and all that? Where initially I wanted to do the full one, but now with the basketball and we're gonna have a new coach. He's from at least I'm hoping we're gonna have it. He's from the States and he's like proper like really tall. You can see that he's like he's been a player and he's really
Yeah.
he knows what he's talking about. We had one trial workout with him. And like that's in like last few months, that was the first time that I got excited about basketball again.
Ah.
And that's
Yeah.
where I was thinking, well, if I'm training for a marathon and then I like in like couple of months or like hopefully next month, I have basketball come in. And then if I try to squeeze triathlon on top of it, and I'm not, mind you, that's not my job. That's what I'm getting paid for. It's just a
Right.
hobby.
Right.
It's just a hobby. It's
Hobby.
probably gonna
Yep.
be too much. And that's where I
Probably.
decided to like slightly take a step back. Still gonna do some of the triathlon stuff, but it's not to train actually for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than like the running. And even with that, it's like I would struggle with that decision because I was like, well, I had committed to the Ironman. And then I had to go through this conversation with myself of first of all, you're not quitting. You're just taking a step back at a time that it
It's just
makes
shifting
sense.
focus
Yeah, exactly.
and attention.
And at the same time, it's also like because with the Ironman, I would have people ask me, "So what's the next? Are you doing the one that is like we're gonna have it here literally like within a month
Right.
as we're recording it?" And I would have people asking, "Are you doing it?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet." At the time, I actually hadn't decided, and I would struggle with that decision because I'm like, "It's here. I did it last year, and I might
Right.
as well just go and do it." And then I was like, well, not everything always has to be squeezed in. Like, it's
Right.
trusting that process of not n- more is not always better, if ever. Um, but at the same time, it's that kind of unconscious pressure from the society that we're in of you have to maximize, you have to like push, you have to all that. Where if you don't, you can easily start to feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong, as if it's even wrong. What would be your
Right.
like input when it comes to all that, like optimizing your life?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is what is important to you? And start to really clearly define what is important to you, what your needs are, and where do we need to prioritize your attention in a sense. Where does health fall into that? I have health is a very important one for me, and
Yeah,
I've
same.
found a way to manage that in a busy schedule. I usually schedule exercise with people with
Mm,
I've got four
yes.
friends and again that's what the call to rise is kind of centered around is I've got 4 great male relationships, local, in person, that center around exercise and fitness and taking care of yourself. And through that avenue, we can have deeper conversations because we're spending time being present with each other and we talk and we engage. And this has been always been my experience for years is you go out and you run with your buddy and you talk to them or on the bike or in the weight room or whatever. So we talk about our kids, we talk about our wives, we talk about our businesses. 3 of them have businesses out of the 4 and the complexities of juggling all of that. So that would be, I guess, the thing there on figuring out where those importance lies of being, connected and most definitely being present. This is all that we have is this right now, and I want to be present for you. I want to be present for myself and the audience to be able to give the value that they need and not be distracted by this notification or this disruption or even my
What's coming
kids
up?
in a sense. Yeah. Or yeah, what's coming up next? I do have a 10 o'clock call with someone, which is fine. And we have more than enough time, but I don't need to think about her. I'll think about her when we get done and then I'll call her and then we'll go through what we need to make sure she's being productive. So then I'll do my best to be present for her and give her what she needs. I guess that would be the most important thing is understand where your attention needs to go and prioritize in your day and schedule time appropriately. That's I think a lot of the challenges people are having is time management and stress management more than everything else because the information is out there. It's just are you organized enough to be able to take the information and actually apply it to whatever area that you need? And you can only do so much. You can only level up so much in any one area at any given time.
Yeah, it's something that I have identified or I have started to apply where they usually describe it as cleaning rooms. You don't clean your house like, oh, 5 minutes this room, 5 minutes that
Mm,
room. It's like you take one room, you clean that, and then you move to the next one usually, and then you kind of rotate through that. And it's the same with
right.
like life
Right.
areas where when I set, I'm not even sure I'm like too like happy or too much into setting goals at this point. It's more so setting actions. Like goals I still
Yeah.
have, but I'm more so like, what are some of the systems I can build, some routines or
Right.
some daily steps that I can take to get to that goal. But I focus on like one main area and then the rest of the areas, or like I might have my one main and one secondary, and the rest of the areas, it's kind of like how do I make sure I don't move backwards just to maintain them, like maintenance goals. And with that, I don't feel like I'm neglecting, but at the same time, I don't expect for that area to now accelerate or move so much forward compared to like the main area that I want to focus on. And then I can rotate them through based on the season or whatever I'm in that I want to focus on. And that's why now I'm not necessarily in the focus of performing at sport. It's more so the business's main focus. Um,
Right.
but I don't want to neglect my health. So that's why I have like basketball, which there's a team. So I have to show up to the practice once we're going to
Yep.
start. Same thing with the swimming because I had my first open water competition this month actually. Um, and it was like 2 weeks ago. And there's, I have swimming buddies from the swim program that I had. And there was one day, like leading up to that competition, it was raining outside, and I'm looking at the chat. Nobody's messaging anything, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna leave it as it is, because I thought somebody gonna message like the weather is bad, let's just cancel. Nobody
Right.
did. So one of the swim buddies like came to pick me up. We went, and as we were dressing, it was still raining. And I was telling them there was like 2 guys with me, and I was telling them, like, "If it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have come. I would have found a
Oh yeah,
reason not to
exactly.
come and to justify
Yep.
not going just by the weather alone."
Right.
Especially with
Agreed.
open water. Like, you're
Oh yeah.
outside, there's, like, waves, everything,
Right.
and, one of them said that that's why it's important to have people that you can do stuff with, and that's why I
Right.
have these, like small groups with which I'm exercising outside of what I'm doing by myself, but those are the ones that I know that like 100% like it's something that will happen. And then I also create kind of like my non-negotiables for myself because we are so good at negotiating ourselves out of not important stuff because business is more important
Yes.
than my mental
Yes.
health or my
Right.
fitness and all that. But it's like having those small things that even like with I recently started to every morning I just go out on balcony, I just read like 10 pages. And I'm actually being present, taking some notes, doing some thinking, whatever comes up. But I'm actually being present for that moment. And it doesn't take that long, but that's the moment where before all the chaos sets in with the business and work and everything,
Yes.
where I'm just like,
Yep.
this is my time to be present and just do something for myself. And it's not that I read books about business, which is another thing that I'm mindful of that if I read about business, I can do it with like another time, maybe in the evening or in between calls
Right.
or whatever. But those are more so what I feel like I want to work on or I'm curious about. There's no like purpose or, anything like that.
Right.
It's just like just being present and whatever comes, comes. If nothing comes, if there's no notes, that's fine. I'm just like
Yep.
being.
B. Yep. Yeah, we don't do that too much these days. There's no being. There's just all we got to be productive
And it's
on
hard
whatever
because
level.
you're expected to be productive.
Very much so. I have so many clients that we don't talk about food per se. We talk about when they're going to leave work and commit to a time and leave and put it down. I always remind them that they're agreed to exit the building at a certain time when they first signed up for the job. It works over at 5 or traditionally whatever, but they're there till 6:30. Are they
Mm.
paying you for all that? No. Okay, well, you can do that, and I understand some of the culture around careers. You do have to get the work done and stuff, or ultimately end up being replaceable on some level. And I understand some of those connotations, but also setting some personal boundaries around that and standing up for yourself in those situations could go a long way and get you out the door 5:15 instead of 6:30, and then you have an extra hour, 5 hours a week to do life and actually get some level of enjoyment out of it, not just work in a sense. And that's a very challenging thing in the marketplace these days that is really difficult to overcome and manage.
Yeah, I can relate with that as well, where I have to and I had a conversation this morning with somebody who's also entrepreneur about how we have to be intentional with the time to not work or time to have for ourselves or something that we want
Yeah.
to do. Otherwise you
Yep.
get so drawn into it and it also feels like that's the right thing to do. Like everybody's
Right.
doing that. But at the same time, what would be your advice to somebody who is in that situation where they're now like working long hours, but also they are proud about it because like they're doing the right thing. They're like taking the extra step, putting in the extra effort into
Right.
that, and they haven't really experienced. I know that for me that was the case. That once I experienced it, it changed. Where that importance of having the space, of having the space not only physically but also mentally where when I would even like last year when I started to play basketball I was present within the I didn't think anything work I was just I was focused on how do I get the ball really
Right.
and
Right. Get the
and
ball and dribble it.
yeah and naturally it could feel like oh you're just wasting your time like sure I'm exercising but when it comes to like business oh you're wasting your time you're not being
Right.
productive or too
Right.
much time into like exercise and all that um, how to start to take some steps toward finding I don't know if the balance is the right thing because I don't fully believe in balance, but
Yeah. I
at
don't
least
know about
balancing it
that.
out more.
Right. Right. There's different seasons for different tasks that need to happen. Say in this season of my life, I have to spend a bit more time than I want in business building mode. The opportunities that I had or had created in the past just aren't quite there anymore and giving me access to able to find new clients like I did. And therefore, that's why I'm doing podcasts. That's why I'm doing all these other opportunities, sending emails, trying to find collaborations and connections with people to make more impact and value. I have to work a little bit more than I might want to in the season with the hopes that I will be able to settle back into a little bit more of a routine and a rhythm around that. And so that is going to happen, especially in entrepreneurship. But if I were to say work a job, I would hope that I would continually fall back on the work's going to be there tomorrow. I don't need to stay late tonight and sacrifice my real time that I have with my family or friends or doing something other than just work and sleep in a sense and have those boundaries. That's the first thing that comes to mind there
It might
with that.
also be just like playing experiment with
Yep.
like, what if I just take one evening, I finish the time, or like I finish work on time, and instead of going home being mindless about whatever I do home, which might end up being like in front of the TV or scrolling,
Oh
which is not the
yeah.
best use of your time, just think on like, how could I spend this time mindlessly and being present just one evening? Just do it like one evening and then see how it feels, how present you feel and how you feel the next day when you go to work. Because I think a lot of times we get too
Yep.
much into, well, now I can't do it every evening. It's like, just start at one.
Right.
And
Right.
that's not the expectation to do. It's not the black and white where you do all the evenings, you long hours, or it's none of them. It's like,
Right.
let's start somewhere. And and it doesn't mean that the person who tries it out, they will come to conclusion that they want to continue that. Maybe they don't, and that's
Right.
also fine. It's just
Yeah.
about, I think, exploring options and being open-minded to, which is another thing I wanted to ask you. How do you identify which season you're in?
I would say the seasons that someone in the way to figure that out is look around. Let's go 30,000 foot view. What is happening in the current situation that one might be in? And maybe they need to be focused on one area of their life more than another in those different seasons. And they always feel busy or engage in some level because they have to do this thing here, they have to do that thing there, and that's okay. But again, we have to center around some level of personal responsibility would be really important for one person to say be successful there. Um, I, I I think writing down a list of priorities would be incredibly important to help discern where things go on the list. Because then you can get out of your brain of what you think and deem is important or not, and get into the reality of what may or may not be important there.
There's a interesting exercise that I gave to people when I was doing my challenge, is to write down, like, it was life areas or like life roles
Yep.
that you have. Write them down in the order in which you value them, and then write them down in order in which you live them. And then you can
Yes.
compare them, because a lot of times this is more important to me. Okay, let's see at your behaviors. Let's look at your
Yeah.
decisions,
Look at your schedule, look at your actions, and then that determines
because
what's
we can be
priority.
really, like, wrong
Yes.
or
Yes.
misaligned between like what actually feels important to us and what our actions and behaviors show.
Very much so. And that's what I love that exercise to write it down and then uh, see another thing that I've had people do is a time audit.
Yeah.
A time audit in which you write down literally every 15 minutes. What did you do? Everyone has time that they waste and is unproductive. And we can have some of that. You can be entertained. You can scroll the Facebook if you wanted to do that with your time. That's okay. That can't be the norm though of what you do on a regular basis. So a time audit could be a really handy tool that helps you focus on what where the priorities need to be or how much time you're allocating toward it. We can go to be able to you get things Pareto's time line is you get things done in the amount of time that you set aside for it. Set 2 hours or 4 hours, it'll get done either way, generally speaking, right? That it has to be an appropriate deadline or timeline for that thing that you're doing, but you could get it done in less time than it usually does because you stop farting around in a sense.
Yeah, and it's something that I realize now that I'm like my schedule is getting busier, even like with the wisdom in action, where we're posting like 3 times a week. And it's not just
Yeah.
posting that you need to get done, you also need to continue recording and, like,
Right.
scouting for people
Cording.
and not
Yeah.
like, there's so many levels to it that you need to do. And then I also have this podcast as well,
Right.
and that's not client work or my, like, mental health or training or relationships, like, that's just one bucket.
Right.
And on top of it also, like, right now with the podcasting, it's not something that I'm getting paid for. I'm in the build-up phase as well.
Right.
And it's something that I think the question I had is I have seen this a lot in my life, and I know it's really relevant for other people as well. Um, is how do you find or decide what to focus on where you feel like everything needs to be focused on?
Yeah. Time chunking, good old Tony Robbins. We have certain chunks of time and blocks in our calendar that can get the things done when they do it. So it comes back to time management and prioritizing getting those things done in the timeline that you do. So ultimately, it's about being more organized in the overall approach of how do I get all this stuff handled in a timely basis and time chunk as best you can, and then I could do a way better job at it too. I generally have certain times of the day that I do certain things, and then I'm trying to do other things in other times. But I just being self-employed, it's just okay. What's on the list of things to do, and I end up defaulting to that, whether it's to my benefit or detriment, in relationships with my kids or my wife as well. Um, and those things I had to be conscious and sensitive to. And maybe I end up getting the short stick for my own personal health or whatever as a result of not being able to say spend the time and energy toward to make sure that I'm spending it toward everyone else and getting their needs met because I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm more than just Brian
Yeah, you
and
can't just
those
take
things.
vacation of from like
Yeah, yeah,
being
yeah, yeah. Even on vacation, which we do a lot of,
Yeah.
I'm still have to play those roles of how do I manage and navigate and mitigate other people and whatnot going on. It's interesting.
Yeah, like, one thing that I was thinking as you were speaking was what has been helping me is also batching things together, or
Yeah,
like mixing or what is the multitasking, where sometimes when I would go on a walk, I would listen to podcasts, or if I'm exercising, I would
right,
like what you said, I would have like these groups that I would go to not only for accountability, but also I get my social interactions in through that,
right,
um, where it
right.
fulfills like two things at the same time.
Right. I would agree. That's what the exercise is I work out and then I'm doing it with someone, whether it's with my buddies or my kids. I'm actually get to work out with my kids now and I'll recruit them to go work out and spend time or we'll do stuff that's active.
Yeah, it's actually something I wanted to ask you when it comes to men connecting specifically, because I have identified, and I might be wrong, that men don't do connecting where it's like, okay, let's just sit down and talk. I don't
Yeah.
think that's the way men connect. I think it might seem too vulnerable. It
Right.
might seem too kind
Yes.
of, um, too much exposure. Um, but one thing that I have seen is
Right.
that it's at least for me when I would try to like connect to guy, um, whether it's like a friend or like relationship, it's when you are out and about or you're doing something or you're like exercising or you're going somewhere through that environment where you're doing something in parallel to that, it's kind of I feel that's where it's more likely to connect than if we just like sit down and have this like heartfelt conversation about how we feel. kind of thing.
Right. Well, guys, through circumstance and situation for years, I always go back to the phrase of guys don't ask for directions. And that's what you've always been taught. And having a conversation with someone is asking for directions in a sense. And
Yeah.
you can't you just it's a not a social norm. Now in the last 20 years, it's definitely been a shift in men's mental health and being open about some of the things that they are experiencing. And I have conversations with men all the time because it's a one-on-one, it's a coach-client relationship, and I foster that type of relationship in my clients to have a safe space to talk and be open about what is going on in their world. And that's helpful. But I think that would be societal norms dictates that we don't need to talk about it. We just put our head in the sand and just deal with it later type approach.
But
So
also
getting
your
someone to sit down is tough.
it's it's tough one because I've been a part of the podcast, Magnetic Masculinity podcast, where a lot of it is about men and men's mental health and connecting while also being the masculine one. And it's that even like within relationships, there's this expectation. I want you to be the strong one, but I also want you to be the sensitive, like not the sensitive, but like compassionate and caring one.
Yes, yes.
And go and read which one you need to be at which moment, and then while still maintaining being your authentic self, it's like
Yeah.
how
Yep.
do you manage it, or what have you found helpful in managing that, because it's a lot to
uh
juggle.
yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. It's definitely tough to juggle the different roles that I need to play for the different people in my life. And I can show up really well, say the business side. I'm the leader, I'm the guide, I'm the energetic one. I'm the one that you can borrow my energy to become motivated to do
Yeah.
the things or whatever. But say on the side of showing my wife that I care more, at the end of the day, I think that ends up being a takeaway that constantly comes back to is she just wants to know I care for her. And how do I play? Am I talking? Am I listening? Am I giving input? Am I being empathetic? Am I just hearing her out? Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I don't. And then that can just be with communicating with the people around you to get your needs met and doing it in a way that creates that fosters that connection. I think that ultimately so say when I'm talking with a couple about their nutrition, what's for dinner, right? That's the age old classic couples question that everyone hates. What do you want to eat for dinner tonight? Nobody wants to ever answer that, right? It takes 10 minutes. But actually just sitting down and having a conversation around it helps you communicate what some of your needs are to then you both can agree upon what would be for dinner tonight. And then all of a sudden it's one less thing, but you actually sat down and had a conversation, not tried to mind read, and you communicated to that other person what your needs are. I think that's huge. And as long as you can do it in a safe space, excuse me, you foster that safe space with that person, then it shouldn't be a problem. You just have to remember to do it. But then so there's intention around doing the thing, but then there's the spading of actually doing it on a timely basis. And then you forget about what was working and you stop doing the thing that was working because you're just a human. And even my 10-15 nightly alarm goes off, and sometimes I take action and I have a conversation about what's happening tomorrow, about who's going where, what, when, and all that. And other times I forget or I hit the snooze button and I don't go over it. And that's a challenge, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think that the
Yep.
more I look into it and I hear and watch about it, the more I see how complex it is to navigate that kind of like that modern masculinity where it's
Right.
like I need to be this, but I also need to be this. And also I think I had a question on the well, that's another thing I think with the what you said about the relationships and communication. It's also for like wives, girlfriends, partners to understand that first of all, our brains work differently. So we can't expect the other person to now sit down and talk about their feelings if they have never ever ever talked about their feelings. And it's so
Right.
uncomfortable where a lot of times men don't even know what their feelings are. They haven't thought of like they haven't been
No.
taught to feel feelings or understand that there's more than anger and sadness.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Because those are the
Anger,
two
yeah.
allowed ones. even
Right,
even
right.
though like sadness isn't really allowed, but it's something that can be identified.
Yeah. And with that, I would say also, for example, on Nick's podcast, I was talking about my father relationship. He just wasn't there for the last 20 years, roughly. I don't have a model. I don't have someone to talk to about this that should be that person in my life, and I have to go figure it out. And I guess I have my YouTubers that I follow and help me figure things out. And I thought my dad was going to help me do a lot of housework. Because he was a handyman, he just did things with his hand. He fixed things, and that was the persona and the identity that I had for him, and thinking that he was going to participate. I've can tell you how many laminate floors I've laid in different rooms of the houses I've had and whatnot that I've self taught because and all the other things. I don't do too much electric. I'll change an outlet, but I don't run wire, and I chose not to learn to tile because I didn't want to be responsible for a leak in the shower, and then it caused more problems in the basement in a sense. So I avoided doing tiling in a sense, and a major bathroom remodel. But everything else, I'm pretty handy at doing because I've had to learn it. So going back to some of the skill sets you were taught, who how it was taught to you as well. What were you shown when you were
And
growing
also
up and
model
you're most
too.
familiar? Modeled, exactly. Yeah. What did you see on a regular basis that allowed you to shape and form and grow to who you are now? Those are things that you have to understand. And then if you're, say, you have an emotional IQ about you and all, then you can actually do something about it. You can find a coach, you can find a book, you can learn those skill sets because everything that we do is a skill. It's just how good are you at the skill that you're trying to develop, whether it's, say, nutrition. For me, I spend a lot of time talking about it's just a nutrition, a skill set. If you don't know how to cook, then we can figure that out. You don't know how to put a healthy meal together, we can figure that out. You don't know how to portion control, we can figure that out. You don't know how to curb cravings, those are all skill sets. It's not some magical willpower thing. You can just strategically eat in a way that decreases cravings and do it on repeat, and all of a sudden you're not eating 3, 4, 500 calories of sweets at the end of the night every night because of the strategies that you use around the food and the skill set you use to cook it in a way that was delicious and tasty and enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm seeing another gap here to cover because reaching out for help is easy if it's an option. I think for men, a lot of times it's perceived as weakness if you reach out
Yes.
for help, or you're now being vulnerable, or you're less competent, or it makes like mean something about you that you're less of a man, or something like that. How to navigate that where you know you need help, but it's something that I have seen so much. It's so common to, well, I just have to figure it out. It's expected of me, but I can't reach out for help to do that. I just need to find a way on my own.
Right. Eh, I would say knock it off. You are allowed to ask for help. You don't have to have the answers to everything. You were taught a certain skill set or certain in a certain environment as you're growing up, and that is where you're at in a sense. You don't have to know everything. You shouldn't know everything, and that's where you can delegate or get more wisdom, guidance, skill set around to do that. I have coaches to help me with getting my business going. because there's certain skill sets I do have. I can talk to people really well. I can coach them really well. I can do a sales call really well. Those are things that I've practiced through thousands of reps. I can't quite say attract the person I'm looking for to show up on a regular routine basis. And that's a skill set that I'm working on pretty diligently, taking a lot of time and energy, which is fine because that's how you get better at it, is by doing the work and asking for help and then getting the directions, the insights that you need to make the progress that you're looking for. I think you just have to get over yourself, especially if it's affecting a certain area in your life. Say if it was a relationship thing, if you are struggling with a relationship with your spouse, partner, your your boyfriend, girlfriend, and you don't understand how to emotionally connect with them and keep their emotional love languages in a sense full, you're going to struggle in that relationship, and it's not going to end up being what it could be because of your lack of skill set. And that's something that I'm working. I'm literally reading a book on it. It's just like how to be a better husband, right? Because I do what I do and I can always do better, and it's a skill set that I can be there and emotionally. So say I can't give in time to my wife right now because of 4 kids, because of self-employment, and this shift in my season of career, but I can definitely make sure that I put ice in her water when I see that there's not there. I can make her coffee in the morning so it's ready when she wakes up. I can, I fold her clothes, I put them away, I hang them up. Why? Because she's not strong at that. And it has just become something else in the ever forever ending to-do list with 4 kids. And she's spending a lot of mental energy there. I need to look at opportunities to show up for her and do things for her, say behind the scenes, and that would be an easy. Those are 3 easy ones that I can do. I just have to remember to keep choosing to do them because again, I'm human and I might forget to do them, or I get out of the routine for whatever reason.
It's how much of it is ego? Because even what you're
Oh,
talking about, a lot of it takes humility to be able to set your ego aside and be like, you know what, I think there's places or ways how I can improve this or that. But a lot of it actually takes that dealing with your ego, even to admit that, even if not to everybody else, to yourself alone. Like that
yeah.
that
Oh,
takes a
yeah.
lot.
Huge.
And I think even
Yeah.
with reaching out to help, it's the same thing.
Right. Brass tacks moment for you is look in the mirror after you get out of the shower and ask yourself what are some of your needs? What do you need help with in life to help you live a healthier, better balance, whatever that means to you, more successful, again, whatever that means to you. A lot of people identify success as money, monetarily, but relationship, connection, if your physical health, all sorts of things. That would probably be a point in time that you can really get a clear answer to with what is it that I actually do need in this stage of my life with what I'm responsible for.
And I think it's one thing that I thought of. It's less about how you feel and it's more about what helps you to actually get better.
Yes, exactly, right. Feelings come and go. They are just the wind blowing around, and a feeling can be changed instantly. Get a phone call, and on the other end of the phone call, there's really great news. Oh, I'm so excited! Or there's not so great news. I'm really sad, and that happened just like that because the phone rang. So feelings and emotion can change quite a bit, and we don't want to say rely on them per se. Yeah, it's be a human, have the feel all the feels. That's important, but we don't have to let those be the guides in our life. We can and feel those feelings, but step back and try to approach it a little bit more logical with more, say, skills and processes and systems, and that's what makes a successful business is having processes and a system in which delivers the service or good in a way that creates value in the marketplace that people spend that find the value and then spend money on. And that's just a successful business. So we can make our life that as well. And the better you are at it, the easier life feels, and that's at least.
It's something that I also, when it comes to emotions, one thing that I have identified is that when we feel emotions, we tend to add stories to them or meaning to them. But sometimes it's just about it's one way, and the other one is we try to now push them down or not to feel them or whatever because this is the
Suppress.
bad emotion. And yeah, and I have somebody right now who's going through pretty much, it looks like going through like divorce, and it's really heavy
Yeah, it's
to
tough.
measure. and
It's heavy.
and yeah, yeah, and she would tell me like do feel that there's something positive coming on the other end, but right now I don't feel like it. I don't feel happy about it. And I'm like, don't expect to feel happy. Like you have to go through these emotions. Like it
Right.
sucks. It doesn't feel
Yep.
good. um there might be something better coming, but right now you need to go through this storm, and you actually need to allow yourself to feel that and to go through that without also making it mean something about you. Like it just sucks. it
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think a lot of times we have this expectation, even as we go through like hardships or negative emotions or something is going wrong in life, that I have to be the strong person. I can't break down. I can't have anything
Right.
bad. Like,
Right. Right.
yeah, that's one way to look at it. But
Right.
you're human, and if emotions come up, it doesn't mean that you now have to attach to them. You can feel them, allow them to flow, which, by the way,
Right.
usually for emotion, if we don't suppress it or control it or attach to it, it takes 90 seconds to go through your system and then it's gone. What we
Yes.
do is we
Yeah.
we, we hold on to it, or we're now like, I
Yep.
need to like push it down, and now we spend all this time doing that instead of like, you know what, I just gonna stop, set a timer for 90 seconds, and I just gonna be
Feel
with
it.
it. And
Yes.
it's it's so hard to do. It
Yeah.
doesn't it's I'm still learning to do that,
Yep.
and it's still something that it's like you would hope that it gets better, or you you get better at it, but still with specific emotions, it's just like I just need to sit here and I need to just feel like shit and be okay with it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And that's it. Just feel, and not just like, oh, logically or cognitively think, okay, I'm feeling this way. No, actually stop thinking. Don't analyze it, just sit with it and put in body you feel it and actually feel it. And it's so uncomfortable and it's so especially unfamiliar that we rather do anything else but to just take 90 seconds to just feel.
Yes. I always say pity parties should last 5 minutes. Then we need to move on because the problem's still going to be there afterwards. It doesn't need to be 3 days worth of wallowing in a sense.
With that, one thing that I can say is that what I have seen is that the wallowing probably going to happen. If it's wallowing when we actually attach to the feeling, then we might extend it. But at the same time, what can happen is now, let's say, I think really tough one is grief. When we go through grief, there's really no deadline on grief. There's no time frame.
No, no, that
And
one's
many people, they,
something.
yeah, and like with that, it's like, okay, you should get over it by now. And it's like, ah, um, and I think that's the tough thing, even with emotions, is that first
Right.
of all, even though we all feel, well, I can't say we all feel them. We A lot of times we avoid feeling them. We all have
Yes.
them.
Human condition, right?
But there's different ways how, yeah, there's different ways how we process them. But also, it's kind of like we have these expectations about emotions. Because one thing that I have seen is that a lot of times, even like, I don't know, starting a new business or starting new like something, we have this expectation that even like within business, even if you do what you love, I should feel great about it all the time. and And then when
That's not
somebody
true.
asks like, "Oh, how like you're doing what you love, like do you like you must love it?" Then I'm like 90% of the time I do something I don't want to do. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel like doing it in the moment. I don't see result that
Yeah,
I want to see, and I have all these reasons to feel shitty about it. But also, I'm at the place right now where I don't expect to feel certain way. However I feel, but
right.
it's just the way I feel in that moment. There's no, oh, it's like I really liked when Goggins was asked, are you
Yeah,
happy? And he's like, I don't think about it. It's like I don't spend my day thinking about am I happy? Like it's not the main objective for me because I understand that as human,
right.
I will go through ups and downs and emotions and they're
Yes,
gonna change day to day, moment to
right.
moment. And the
Very much so.
important message there, and that's okay. That's normal.
Yes, that's okay. It is normal. Right. 100%. 100% for sure. Goggins is interesting because he has such a go get 'em attitude and energy about him. My son, actually, my 15-year-old, brought him up for the first time yesterday, and I was trying to share who David Goggins was to my wife because my wife would have no clue. It's just not the type of person that she would have any interest
Yeah.
around learning from or just being in his energy. And I've come across him. Obviously, it's a silly amount. And for me personally, I like to take a lot of his ideologies and his undertone of go get him attitude but we have to formulate it to best serve my life as well. I can't go that hard. It doesn't it doesn't fit my lifestyle. I'd have my own divorce in a sense if I approached my life that way because it would be too hard, too focused, too specific to blend with my wife or even my kids per se. And in that situation, I can take the concepts and the ideology of who he is and what he's about, but I had to shift it just a little bit to fit the parameters. I'm a
Scale it.
huge fan of balance, moderation, flexibility, and that's what I live, and that's how I teach and coach my clients to be successful in their relationship. I'm very good at listening and understanding what their environment's about. What are the strategies and the education and the implementation that we need to make sure that you move forward with what your goals are? And we can have our own mini Goggins experience in a sense for them to get them to just do the next thing, which is often the case with anything. Is she have to just do the next thing to learn and go through that experience. Yeah, our first time together was one of my first podcasts, and now I'm 47 deep, and in a relatively short amount of time, which I've leveled up in, say, skills. I hope so. I hope that my communication skills are better. I can more clearly
Actually, you already
communicate
had
and
really
speak.
good communication
Ah,
skill when we
thank you.
were doing our recording.
Thank you.
It
Thank
really,
you.
yeah, I could really hear that even if you haven't had that much experience when we did the first one, you clearly have done enough like explaining and communicating and all that. And you just transferred
Right.
that to yet another platform or setup in
Right.
which you can do that.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I latch on to the podcast is I express myself through my everyday for 20 years talking to someone else on the other side about their life, about their situation, about who they are and what they want, and how to find real actionable ways to piece it together. And I find that's my superpower in a sense. And I do way better speaking than I do written, say, posts or something like that. Or for the love, I'm in my 40s. I don't want to do the song and dance on TikTok or something. That's not the type of energy I want to send out into the world. I want to have authentic, real conversations like we're doing here to show this drive and need for real connection in the marketplace, especially again with there's this one person making fun of AI to the point where you can just pay this company and they'll have a whole branded athlete that will do all the things and say all the things and be all the things for you, and you don't have to do anything. And that's the persona. So you have this male model that's this super action guy, and it's all AI. It's fake. Nobody. uh, there'll be a huge shift back towards personal connection here in the next year or 5 when AI just gets out of control. It's like, oh my gosh, there's just robots everywhere now. Where's a
Yeah.
real person?
One thing I wanted to add, even as you were speaking on Goggins, I think that's such an important point that a lot of times what we see online or how others are doing things, it doesn't mean that for you to apply certain principles to your life, you have to do them at the same intensity, at the same like
Right. You
level
can
or
emulate.
length. You just take that's how I approach it. I consume all kinds of different creators and I just take pieces that I think can fit for me with the way I am instead of
Right.
now, oh, I have to take everything that they do on or that they even if it doesn't align, just because I want to like be like that. It's like it's not always the case. And also being like that might not be my real authentic self anyways.
Right, right. Yeah, I did say David is a bit aggressive for my personality and the way I connect. Even though he definitely meets some of my needs in a sense, and I do watch his content, that drive and that energy, and it checks a box for me. But then I have to distill it, and I can emulate it on some level to then filter how does that show up in Brian speak in a sense?
Yeah. All right. Last question I have for you
All right,
is
cool.
what is the impossible you're chasing now?
Impossible I'm chasing now for me is the next 15 years of my career of how does Brian actually level up to a degree that he can make the impact he wants so that when he's on his deathbed, he can still check the box of very limited regrets in life. I'm trying to play it on a bigger level, bigger stage, bigger presence, bigger being than what I've ever done before. That's the impossible that I'm chasing. I've served people on a one to one in a sense, and I'm just trying to level up to a making a different impact in people's everyday lives.
Love it. Love it. Well, Brian, thank you for coming on. I definitely wish you all the
Yes.
best. And if there's any way I can help you with that, I will
Oh,
sure
yeah.
do so.